Paul, and I'm the second tutor for this track. And today I'm supposed to take introduction to databases. So and okay, so I guess before I start to do like a what else? A what's the word? Small brief about like the prerequisites for this course, because from the feedback that I read, I know there was a form that was sent out feedback, so I thought there were some things that needed to be addressed. So first off, apologies for the delays. As you can see, these technical issues can just sprout from nowhere. So that happened last class because I spoke with the tutor from last class. He said there were some issues, but I believe he was able to cover. I hope he was able to cover like the majority of the content for that week before that happened, before the interaction happened. So apologies for that. Then also apologies again for today. So that aside, I should inform everybody here that if you are taking the Flask course or if you're on the Flask track, it's not a beginner Python course. While Flask is a Python framework, and most of the things we do in Python code, we will not be teaching you how to print hello world or how to write functions in Python. This course is better suited for people who are already familiar with writing Python code. More specifically, people who already know how to use object-oriented programming and write classes and all that kind of stuff in Python already. So if you don't already have, you don't already know Python, then I would advise you switch tracks while you still can, because it wouldn't be fun for you to watch people me just write code or talk about some things that will be weird or strange to you. So I guess those are the things I just wanted to mention. So there's a Python track that is for Python beginners. So if you don't know Python already, you need to know Python to use Flask. That's why it's called a Python framework. So yes. Uh, Before I start, can anybody uh, just briefly talk about what you guys did last class? I know what you guys did. I just want to be sure that you are following and you understood everything that happened in the last class. Because these things are kind of tied to each other. So if you don't understand what happened in the last class, if I start explaining today's class, you might not be able to flow well. So if there's anybody from the audience that can just say a thing or two about Flask, forms. I know you covered forms and creating simple routes. Is there anyone that can volunteer to do that? I hope you guys can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. You didn't cover forms.
Think about what?
Forms. I think what we did was just introduction, then we explained URL,
Okay.
creating URL and stuff.
I see. Okay, no problem, no problem. So, okay, about the URL, someone, so a thing also about this. If you can,
So I think what I remember, because I'm not,
okay, no problem.
I remember,
Yeah, that's actually also very important. You guys should have notes that you use to jot things down. So please take notes as much as you can. The classes are recorded, so you can always go back to the recordings as reference. But I know writing notes will actually help you. So yeah. Okay, so today I'm supposed to talk about databases. Yeah. Did you guys do templates? Like, did you show you? show you how to render
Yeah,
HTML.
we
Okay.
explained
Okay.
that, but it didn't show, like, we didn't really do any practical. I was just reading from the slides. We didn't even work with any IDE. We didn't do anything
I see.
coding. We were just reading from slides.
Okay. Okay, so what will happen is I'll do a quick introduction to Flask again. I might not be able to cover forms, but I'll do a quick introduction to Flask again. As I just show you a thing or two, then we jump to the databases. These guys already have some idea on the first week. So yes. So what is Flask? Uh, what's Flask? Let me just pose the question to the audience. Or let's start from what web servers are.
Flax is a light um,
Okay, Samuel, don't say
backend framework.
Samuel. Hold
Huh?
on. Maybe somebody else should talk. I want the class to be interactive. If that's okay with everybody. Is there any other person from the audience that wants to talk? If you don't see anybody, then someone can. Adebo, Ali, Chitima, Clinton, Deborah, Isaac, Mila or Mila. I don't know how to pronounce that. Loyede, I can see you people. Anybody? Okay, Samuel, you can take it away. Throw is all yours.
Yeah, like I was saying, I said
Yeah.
Flax is a web development framework, and is a light web development framework compared to Django.
Hmm. Thank you very much for that fine definition. Although it sounded opinionated. It said lightweight. So yes, that is true. Flask is usually referred to as a light framework. What does that actually mean? Is it really does it mean it is less capable than other frameworks like say Django or Tornado or the other Python web frameworks? Does it mean it's less capable? So I will preach a bit about it because I'm a huge fan of Flask. So I'm just going to take you straight to where in the documentation. I hope you guys can still see my screen. Can you guys still see my screen?
Yes, we can. Yes, perfectly.
Okay. So I'm going to take you straight to the documentation, and here the creators of Flask called Flask micro for a reason. So, and this is just to clear the air because some people have this notion that Flask is a micro framework, it's not as powerful as Django, it's not as this as that. But the truth of the matter is they're both Python. It's both Python. If Django were a C++ framework, then you can make the argument that okay, C++ is faster during runtime, but that's not the case. It's still just Python. So as far as speed goes, they're just as fast. Flask is just as fast as any other Python web framework that you possibly find. So here, what micro means is that you can you can create a web server with Flask by doing you know, very little work. So you can put everything into a Python file. If you create a Django application, while the experts already know how to make their project folder as lean as possible, if you're just starting with web frameworks, Python, Django can be a bit overwhelming because you get all of this different stuff, folders. This goes in here, this goes in. It's almost like a black box that you don't really know. It takes time for you to figure out why all of these things are that way in Django if you are a beginner. But with Flask, the transition from learning Python, from writing simple hello worlds, py, a game.py file, that transition from doing all of that stuff in Python to building web servers with the same single file that you're already familiar with is smoother than learning as it is with Django, because Django gives you a whole stuff. So they are both frameworks, meaning that they will tell you how to write your code, as opposed to a library that you can just import and call some functions and classes in. Frameworks give you ways to structure your code. But with Flask, that it's not overly emphasized how you should write your code. So by default, for example, look here. It says by default, Flask does not include a database abstraction layer, form validation, or anything else where libraries already exist that can handle that. Instead, Flask support extensions. So a simple analogy is you are given a blank sheet and a pen, draw whatever it is you want to draw, as opposed to maybe having certain areas where you're supposed to draw certain things in. That would be analogous to what Django gives you. Flask is just a blank sheet, you can draw whatever it is you want. You can make simple applications, you can make applications as complex or even more complex than Django applications. You have freedom to do whatever you want, and this is really one of the main reasons why I vibe with Flask a lot. So yeah, that's just to clear the air. Flask is just as powerful as Django. I think someone tried to join in. Okay, so let's see how to create a simple Flask application. Let's have to do that. So it's as easy as creating a normal Python file. I'm currently in a folder called Flask Tools. And here I already created a file called app.py. Actually, let me delete it. DL app.py. Yes. So I'm going to create a new file called app.py or app.py. Normally create a Python file here. So it's just that easy. One thing we need Flask is it doesn't come by default with Python, so you have to install it using. When I'm creating projects, is to use familiar with virtual environments. Not everybody is, but the majority of everyone here is familiar with virtual environments. Are you guys familiar with virtual environments?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I think that was like two people that spoke. Is there a way you can raise your hand up in this meeting? I'm not familiar with Teams app. I know what there is Teams.
Yeah, I'm not
Raise your
familiar
hand.
with.
If you can, okay. That's good. So am I to assume that the rest of everyone else here, they don't know what virtual environment is? Because that means I have to explain it though. Please raise your hand. Fine. If you can see my screen, is just look for this raise hand thing. Yeah, to just keep it on so I can count lower. Okay. That's three. Three, four. Oh, it's like as I'm over and over, it's like four people raise their hand out of 11. Is there anyone else? Please. Okay, well, okay. You guys can drop your hands. I'm just going to explain it. So, I'll explain it using an example. So you're working on a project, yeah. You're working, and this. Say if you've written it, I presumably all of you have worked with Python before, to a certain extent where you had to like install. So you've done something like pip install ticking which is like a GUI. Like, does it come? I'm not sure if it comes in Python, but you've had to install something before to build something in your Python application. If you've ever had to do that, you notice that there are different versions, and I can show you that. I can go to Piping now, piping.org. It's like a repository of Python packages and libraries. You just open any random one. Yeah. Already you can see from the name 0.0.9, that's a version. 0.2.7, that's a version. You open any random one, you can check their release history and you see that they have different versions. Yeah. So say for example, one you open a project in May of 2022, and as at then, I guess okay, it's let me say May, let's say February, as at then 0.2.0 is the latest version, and you use that one, then you've been using it, it's been working fine for you, you know, otherwise it's working fine for you. You installed that. Let's now say you installed it on your laptop globally. You don't know what virtual environments are at the time, so you just installed 0.2.0 and it's working fine of this particular library. Yeah. After a while, you later in the future you are creating a new project, you are working on that project. Say one of the libraries that you installed or your project now requires a particular version of this library. Say it's requiring, so before you remember you had 0.2.0 installed. If it now requires that in the future you need 0.2.5, you install 0.2.5 again. So like you now have one and another library that requires 0.2.5. I mean another project rather that requires 0.2.5. You have two. One is dependent on an older version, one is dependent on a newer version. Is this
Well, my time here, everything.
I think there's something wrong with his network.
Hello. Sorry, I can't see or hear anything. Is this particular to me or is it the same for everyone, please?
It's the same for everybody. I think there's something wrong with his network.
Okay, thank you.
still have the link now? I think still have the link. Check the spreadsheet they sent. Hello? Hello? Can you guys hear me? Sorry, my network.
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry about the interruption. Someone called my line. Just broke it.
But we can't see your screen though.
Yeah, I'm sharing it now.
Okay.
Is it showing now?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. So as I was saying, if you had those two different projects that require two different versions of the same library, it creates conflict. So you need to find a way to isolate those two projects into their own space. So every project has its own set of dependencies that may or may not need specific versions. Or in the event that they do, you know, you are rest assured that no two projects conflict each other because of dependency or version issues. So and that's the beauty of virtual environments. So we create virtual environments to just to create a space for our project that can install all of the dependencies of our project in, as opposed to installing it globally on your laptop. So if you install a library globally on your computer, let me share an example of what I'm saying. So for example, I'm not inside any virtual environment right now. So if I do something like pip list, pip list command list all of the Python packages that are currently installed on my computer. This is everything I have installed globally. Yeah. Now if I now say I create a virtual, okay, I have a virtual environment somewhere here, this project called Gaia. So if I activate the virtual environment here, don't worry, I'll explain all this stuff. But you notice that you see this bracket stuff that is in front, it's prefixing my current location on the CMD. It tells me that I have activated a virtual environment and I'm currently inside a virtual environment. So if I do pip list, see that the set of libraries that will show up, they are quite different from the ones I have installed globally. For example, I don't think I have this zip installed globally. Okay, let me make it clearer. So let me open another command prompt so I can check by yourself. So here I'm not in the virtual environment. I want to list all of the ones installed globally. Okay, I have zip installed. So let's see the ones that I don't have installed globally. I think I have Unicorn installed globally. I don't. So she can see the set of libraries installed globally are different from the ones I installed in the virtual environment. You can think of virtual environment as small boxes containing books. So you have or yeah, imagine a room with boxes, and in each of these boxes you have books in them. These boxes are virtual environment with books in them, but also in the room there are books everywhere on the floor. Books everywhere on the floor would be the ones that are installed globally on my computer. They're just everywhere on the floor on my computer, and anyone that walks into that room can pick it or immediately see any book on the floor. But if these boxes are closed, for example, you don't know what libraries are inside there unless you open them, or in other words, activate the virtual environment. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Do you guys understand? Fine, continue.
To an extent, yes.
To an extent. You are not sure of something. What are you not sure of?
No. The thing is, I'm not completely used to it, so I'm just picking it up. I understand what you are saying to a good extent, but I don't know the practical application of it, so I can't understand it fully yet.
Okay, fair. Don't worry, Sha. You see practical application in a minute. So that's what virtual environments are. So I'm going to create a virtual environment. I want to show you guys how to create the Flask application. Seeing as the last class, I didn't really show you, just showing code snippet. So, like I said, Flask is so easy. You can create it in a single file. like you do with regular Python files already. So, but we need to install Flask first, and I don't want to install Flask globally. And I explain why that's not very, what I call it, ethical to do. So, let's create a virtual environment. In order for you to create a virtual environment, there are a couple of options. But I use this one called virtual ENV. If you already know how to do it, there's this library called virtual ENV. So if you have Python installed, so if you want to follow with along with what I'm doing, if you have Python installed and you don't have virtual environment, virtual ENV, just do pip install virtual ENV like this. When you run that, this will install it. Because I already have it installed, the same requirement already satisfied, as you can see here. So once that's installed, I can now do something like virtual, I just type virtual env, that's the command, followed by the name of the virtual environment I want to create. So I can call this anything, you can give this anything you want. Some people name it the exact name as project that they're working on, and that's what I'm going to do. So let me go to where my project is. It's a folder called Flask. It's that I created is again, it's Flask tools. So I'm inside the folder now. So let me create a virtual environment. Virtual env followed by the name. Someone does join. Okay. That got disconnected. Followed by the name. I just like calling them env. Also, this thing seems a bit long. Fast iPhone. So virtual env space env. I'm just calling my virtual env. So if you press enter, you wait a few seconds while it creates the virtual environment for you. Once that's done, it's something like this. So let's just clear this out. If you're on Windows, you can type CLS to clear like previous logs on your command prompt. If you are on Linux or Mac, I think clear is. I'm pretty sure that it's clear for Linux, but I don't know what it is for Mac OS, but I think it's clear since you are using Bash. So just type clear and clear that out. In case you're wondering how I'm doing that stuff. So let's now activate the virtual environment. So in order to activate it, there are two ways to go about it. If you're on Windows, you press dot, then backward slash, followed by the name of the virtual environment. My own is env, another backward slash, followed by scripts. Then I'm going to call the activate shell script there. So, and I'm going to press enter, and as you can see here, it's activated here. This is how you know it's activated. You see the name of the env, virtual env in parentheses as a prefix on your current path. So we're there now. Let's now install pip. Let's do pip install Flask, install Flask. So I'm moving a bit fast because this is not what I'm supposed to be doing today. I'm just trying to show you guys how to do this. So now that we have Flask installed, hopefully I'm not too fast. Now that we have Flask installed, now create a new file called app.py. So if you are on Linux, you can just type touch app touch followed by name of the file you want to create a new file. Then this is the file I create. ls is to list the things inside that folder. So I am currently in Flask tools. I created a file called app.py using the touch command. If this touch command doesn't work for you on Windows, you can use echo dot followed by this arrow greater than arrow sign followed by the name of the file. It does the same thing. So I have app.py here and I have Flask installed. Let us now create this Flask application. I'm going to open VS Code from here. You don't already have I think it was mentioned as a prerequisite for the course, like things you needed to get for the course. I don't think I have that spreadsheet and that document. But if you have, hopefully you guys have VS Code installed. If you have VS Code installed, you can just type code then space dot. VS Code. So VS Code will open, but it's also open the current folder that you are in, which is Flask tools. Okay, so we open that. We open that, and as you can see, I am in Flask tools. This is the virtual environment created. This is a folder you do not touch. Just leave it as it is. It is, sacred stuff. Don't touch it. So yeah, this is the app.py file that I just created, and this is where we're creating our Flask server. Yes, so now let's now start writing actual backend. This is a simple py app.py file, and for me, I can just do something like print hello world. It works like every normal Python file, run Python file in terminal. It just prints hello world, as you can see here. Is my text too small? I use small text. I don't know if you guys can. It's legible well, or I can see it very well. Should I zoom in a bit? Is my text small?
It's okay.
Eh?
I said it's okay.
It's okay. Okay, great. So it's okay. Yeah. So you see that it's just a regular Python file. It's nothing to be scared about. So how do you create a simple Flask application? That's easy as let's do. Let me just take you to the documentation straight. So I'm actually going to be part of what I'm going to show you is how to look for answers to what you're looking for. So let's go to the Flask docs, and you see that it's actually not that hard to do. So we're in the Flask documentation. Go to quick start, and it's very easy. You can see this is all it takes to build a simple Flask application. A minimum Flask application looks something like this. We import Flask, we do all of this. Let me just copy this. Copy this. Let me do all of this one yet. But let me just copy this. Copy this. Then we do. Well, this is 7 minutes to do that. So let's test it. Okay. So I was just testing something out. So yes. So this is how easy it is to create a simple Flask application. So from first thing we do is we import the Flask class. You see that it's a class here, class. So I presume everybody knows what a class is. Like I said, this is not a Python primer course. It's a Flask session. So this is a Flask
Sorry,
class.
Paul,
Yeah.
please do us a favor and zoom in, please. It's too small.
Oh, I see. I thought so. So is it better now?
A little bit more.
Yeah.
Thank you. God bless you.
Yeah, okay. So this is a Flask class. This is a class called Flask, and we're importing that from the Flask module that we installed earlier on. Now we instantiate that class, or create an instance of the class this way. So you just create a variable, set it equals to Flask, then you pass in the name of the current module. This double underscore name double underscore is a special and reserved name or variable in Python that holds the name of the current, that holds the name that holds the name of the current module or the current Python file that you are in. So since I'm in app.py, there's a proxy name for this file, and it's called, if you print double underscore name, you see double underscore main. You get, and what this means is, so look at something now. Let's comment this out. let's take a quick detour and explain what this double underscore main is. Although, does everyone know what it is? Do you guys know what this double underscore main is? I will just don't know what I might talk about.
Yeah, I know what.
Oh, you guys know what it is? Okay. So yeah, so it holds the name of the current file that you're in. You guys should talk, but those are not talking. Don't let them answer for you. If you know you don't understand it, please that will not be lost. So this double underscore name double underscore holds the name of the current file that you're in. It's app.py that is the name here, but there's a proxy name for it and it's called double underscore main. So you print the value of this, you will not see app.py. What you will see is double underscore main. And this is partly because you are running it from inside the same file. If you go to another file, see I could say I had another file here and I printed I imported this app.py, then I say print the name of this app.py, I'll get the actual name. So that's about that, shall. So we instantiate the Flask first this way. This is how we instantiate this. There's no two ways about it. If you're creating a Flask application, this is how you must do it. And don't ask me why. It's not me that was Flask, but they said we should do it this way. So you have Flask, import Flask, you pass in the underscore name, and this is what you call a route or an endpoint. So a route is, for example, why is who is that the I think the person network is bad. So what's the route? Here's a route, for example. Flask.blah.com /en /2.this quick start. This is a route. It defines where something is located on your web server. So you know how this is that is awfully similar to this one here. It looks a lot like this, like a file path. That's kind of what routes are. So we are basically telling it where to find certain resources. And on your computer, when you create a new folder, you get a route that will tell you, this is where this file is located, or a file path, or a folder path, right? And the same thing is true for web servers, except we have to define those things because web servers are usually just blank and empty. But we are the ones that will not say, okay, I'm creating so resource on so route. So if you go to / we are going to my name or my server name.com / just / as you can see here, you will find this resource there. You find whatever you shall find a resource there. I have defined it that this / is a valid endpoint, right? So there are two parts to it. This is the route or URL. Now this one here, this function that you're looking at, is what you call a handler method, right? So please, you should actually just know it because I'm going to say something tomorrow. So I'll explain what this means. So can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Is my screen still showing?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hope you guys are writing, shall. Is everybody writing? Before I even continue, are there any questions so far from anybody? Or some, okay, I think depends on joined, so you might not have questions, but Joel, Isaac, Deborah, Clinton, you guys don't have questions? Or are you guys already Flask gold there? Because I feel like I've been saying a lot and confusion is bad. Well, I feel the scholars shall. Yeah, I don't know. If you guys have questions, please, because I want to be sure you understand what I'm saying before I go further. Or are you not hearing me very well?
I can hear
understand.
you. I'm okay over here. I'm okay. I'm
Yeah.
following you.
Okay.
We did your back.
Yeah, now. Okay, so yeah, again, another reminder, please write. Now let's talk about HTTP, how the internet works and what HTTP is. You might be hearing HTTP like it's literally here, sir. You can see it here. HTTPS, but it's still HTTP. So HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Yes, I was talking about Flask before, and then suddenly I'm now talking about HTTP. It's important because you need to understand how the internet works for you to, so it can easily relate to what I'm about to say about handler methods. Yeah. So when I go to a website like google.com, it says what you call, I'm sending something called a request or an HTTP request. So typically, electronic devices, gadgets, they communicate to each other via something called a protocol. So the protocol defines how device A is going to talk to device B, and it varies from network to network. So, for example, if you want to send a file from one phone to another phone, you might be using something like Bluetooth to send it. So Bluetooth is like the carrier and it's helping you transmit those signals from one phone to another phone. Whereas the protocol that's helping you send the files, or how should this file be actually sent? Should I send the whole file at once, or should I break it down into small things? Maybe typically you call them packets and send across the networks little by little. So there are different protocols that define how two devices talk to each other. And on the internet, this protocol is HTTP. HTTP defines how two computers or how two devices on the internet or the international network communicate with each other. So my device, Jesus Christ, I'll always say the device. My device communicates with Google's servers using HTTP. And there are different ways or different rules. There are these things called rules that HTTP defines or verbs. They're also called verbs, HTTP verbs. We also call them verbs. So these HTTP verbs, there's a number of them. There's post, there's get, there's put, there's parse, there's delete. There are other ones too. These are the common ones. Now, these ones they basically talk about how the different kind of requests that are possible. So like when two devices are communicating, they are basically sending requests to each other. So when I say request, I mean a device sending some signal, or is either is asking for a data, either is sending data, or is doing some other sort of data transmission. It's called a request. It's done by something called a request. We shall call it request. So when I say request, I mean sending information, child. That's what should come to your mind. So, and how you send information is defined by HTTP verbs. So, and there are a couple of them. There's get, there's post, put, pass, delete options, a number of them. For example, when I go to google.com, what is actually happening in the background is that my laptop is sending something called a get request, an HTTP get request, or a get verb to Google or to Google's servers that are located somewhere. These servers are just computers too. They just don't have GUI. They don't have a monitor attached to them. They're processors that are running some sort of software on them that's allowing me to see this home page and allowing me to send, this so-called request to them in the first place. So when I go to google.com, I'm sending what's known as an HTTP request. But what kind of request am I sending? I'm sending a GET request to Google. And as the name implies, a GET request is just to get the source. So when I send a GET request, part of the resource that I get back from the servers or from Google servers is the HTML that you're looking at on my page, on my screen right now. This is google.com. All this text and everything Google shared, the whole thing is served from the server of my typing. It's served from the server. Let me pretend I know how to use this Chrome Dev tools and see if I can find anything. No, I don't know how to use Chrome Dev tools. I'm not a front end. Okay, so this is as far as I can show you. But you can see this. This is everything I get back from Google. So as you've seen, all of this stuff came back from the single request that I sent to google.com servers. Yeah. Now, when you send a request, you can imagine that when I send a request, this is just a text. This is just text that you are seeing. I mean, but your browser is the one doing the request on your behalf. When you're sending the request to google.com, it's loading here. You see the data is loaded small, 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 small. You see, like if you look at my screen here, it's coming in little by little. So if I do a search for Flask docs, if you look on the right pane of my screen, some dynamically loaded content is coming in little by little. That's how data is loaded from the server. So the request has been fulfilled by the server. But how does the request get fulfilled? I'm requesting for data using a get verb or a get HTTP method. They also called method. A get HTTP method to request for this data here. But how is it being fulfilled? This is where handler methods come in. Handler methods is what I was about to talk about here. So you can imagine that on Google's backend, there's something called just imagine. This is not. I'm pretty sure it's not what they don't use Flask. I'm not sure they use Flask, but imagine that this is what we're seeing on the backend. So there's a route, google.com/, just google.com basically. So there's a handler method, serve, call it serve page, that returns some HTML that you are looking at here. So let me just copy all of this. Return this. I hope this doesn't break. Return all of this code here. Some new line character that broken the string. Now it's okay. Let me see. Can I use backticks? Okay, but okay, let me put this in a file. Let me just put it in a file. Yeah. Put this in a file. And let's say return. Just calm down. I just want to show you something. So I'm not showing you render template. I will explain that in a bit. I just want to show you something. Render templates index. So let's test this. You can imagine that somewhere on the back end of Google, there's this handler method or a function that once people send a request to this route, or once people go to www.google.com/, this function takes action and returns this page that you're looking at. So and we can illustrate that, we can like simulate it. Like let's try that. Let's see if that works. So all that long code that we send. Okay, I have to change. So what happens now? So the okay index not found. Oh, wait a minute. That's good. Let's see if I can show you that. yeah, so it's not going to work because there's just so much HTML in that file. As you can see, it's saying template syntax error. So much stuff in that Google file that it wasn't properly formatted. It's just too much. So, but yeah, you can imagine that there's a file. Let me tell you all of this. There's a function, a handler function, that when you send a request to this route, it's the function that handles the request. That's why they are called handler methods or handler functions. So this is basically what they are, and so it's going to be the same for when you go to google.com, the handler method serves you this page and takes in your input and then does all of that processing. Yeah, so and that's what this is. So there are two parts to an endpoint. This is an endpoint. The whole thing is the endpoint, the route, and then there's a handler method or a handler function. So and what this one does is that let's run that simple server, for example. Let's run the simple server. What that does is when I go to localhost port 5000 slash, it just prints hello world to the screen. Just hello world, that's all it does. So that's a whole Google uh, web page right there. So that's how you create an endpoint. This is it. We have a server that is working. See, we're showing us the logs. We can see what's happening as we're sending. You see that we sent a get request to watch out. We sent it to forward slash. That's what this is here. This is what you call logs. This is get slash HTTP 1.1, and this is the response from the server. It's 200. This is a good thing. We'll talk about status codes later on in the future. But yeah, this is how you create a simple Flask application, a simple Flask web server. But how do you actually run your application? So you can run it like any other Python application. You can just go and type Python followed by the minus file, Python after file. I know you can see me running Flask run, but that's just shortcut. I'll explain what that's later on. I don't want to jump to that aspect here. So but in order to run your application, you need to add one last thing to your script. So we type this if double underscore name is equal to double underscore main, type app dot run. So the run is going to call, it's what's actually going to run the file. So what this means is that if you run this file, app double underscore name is main, if you run this actual file, and it's not that we're doing like an import, if you run it, do app dot run or start the server. See the run method here runs the application on a local server, as you can see from the docs here. So from here I can just go and do Python after py and I have a server up and running. It's just that easy. It's that easy. Does anyone have questions so far on how to create a Flask application? I believe everybody should be able to create a simple Flask server like now. Is everyone good? Can you operate? If you don't want to talk, yeah, just raise your hand. If you can create the web server now?
Hello?
Yeah, okay.
The, I noticed that when you load the if underscore then equals underscore name,
I can't hear you well.
um, I said after the if underscore name underscore equal, what did you do? Is it that you pressed? Is there a place you press run and
Did I press what?
did you press run? Like yes. How did you get your program to run?
I'm not sure I heard you.
How
How?
did you get your program to run? This program that
Oh,
you're
how
seeing
did
now.
I run it?
How,
Yeah,
yes.
like I said, it's just as easy as running like how you run your how do you run normal Python file? Just Python the command Python from the command prompt, followed by py. Okay, some of you might have been used to doing this thing here, pressing this button from VS Code. I don't like it. That sounds very blunt, but I really don't like pressing it from here because I just don't like it. So I prefer to go over to the command prompt and type where and go to where my folder is and type Python app.py. But yeah, you can definitely press it from here too. It should work. So if you press the run button from here, you see that it's running from here too. Do you get? So, but you should
Okay.
get used to. You should get used to. Yeah, you see me doing it a lot. I don't ever run code from here. I always do it from terminal. But you should also be able to run. Just navigate to where the file is on your command prompt, and then do Python after py. Also make Python after py. That's it. And to start the server. So I believe everybody should be able to create a simple Flask application. In fact, that's your assignment. Well, that's going to be part of their first assignment for this section. Yeah, raise your hand if you can create a Flask application. I think everybody should be raising their hands up. But like now, everybody should be able to raise their hand. Whoever is not raising their hand will have to unmute themselves and tell me what they don't understand. Raise your hand, don't drop it yet too. I want to be sure. How many hands are up? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 hands. Okay. There's many Chidima, Deborah, Myla, and Ore. You guys are not raising up your hands. What is happening? What parts don't you get? Or you don't know how to raise your hand? If you can see my screen, just look for this raise hand thing here. And press it. Other people can drop their hands now. You can drop your hands. I mean, like, good enough. Then you can drop your hands. Okay. So good. Good is great. We now know how to create a Flask application. So let's not talk about templates. How much time do we have left? How long is this class supposed to be for?
We have
So,
about 40 minutes left. 39.
About
39
well,
minutes left.
39 minutes. Hmm.
I 38 minutes left.
3 8. Abi, 3 and 8
Yeah,
is
38.
here.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
Okay.
38.
Left.
Okay. What to do? Should I do templates? Should I talk about templates or should I start this one? No.
Forms and intro database.
I have what did you say?
Then ORO. I said we
Yeah.
have already done introduction to Flask. We have done templates and Jira too. So
Uh-huh.
let's do forms and intro to database.
Okay. Yeah, since you guys already you have the slides for reference.
We
Okay,
don't
so
have the slides yet.
I thought Fortune already sent it to you guys.
No, I don't have it yet. I don't know. Where did you send it to?
I don't know. That's what I heard. Well, okay. I will try and get it for you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, what is a database? Let's start with that. What's a database? Does anyone know what a database is? Do you have an idea of what a database is?
Database is a table-like structure that stores data.
That's a fine definition, but it's not complete. It's not necessarily complete. Yes, it's table like, but then not all of them are table like. So a more generic or a more general definition that would cover all of them is that So it's a collection of related data. So and to have it in two forms, the tabular form like Samuel has mentioned, or the NoSQL form, which is more, well, it's not direct to explanation, but there are two types. So there's SQL databases or relational databases and non-relational databases. So this is the one that you might be more familiar with. So if you've used Google Sheets before or Excel, this is this is what a typical database would look like.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. Can you come again? You said there are types of database: tabular
Yes.
form
Yeah, there are two types.
and what?
They are relational and non-relational. They are also called,
No, like you said. Okay,
yeah. It's the same thing. Yeah, I will explain. So the relational one is the one like
they have
tabular. That is like 30 tables. This one that looks like
okay.
what's here. Yes. The non-relational ones don't look like tables. They don't have structure at all. And there's a reason why they are called that. So there's two names for them. Let me, as you can see, I wrote here relational and non-relational databases. They are also called, like this one is also called SQL and no SQL. Yeah, so this is how they are. So there's two, they're in two like that. So this is what a typical relational database would look like. Yeah, so you'd have rows and columns, and you can just do something like name. I already had this type name, email, department, phone number. This is what a typical database looks like. Okay, I can even show you one here. Sir. I have what's it called? Let me show you one. So you see that it's just like Excel. See, it's just like Excel. It is you see that this is row. I only have one row here, but you can see the idea of columns, ID, name, email, username, password, sign up date, and row. This is a single row here, or an entry. So this is it's just like Excel. This is a relational database. It's called Sqlite or SQLite, and this is how they are. And what separates relational databases from uh, non-relational databases is that relational databases, for one, they have structure, so you can structure them however it is you want. Another thing is you can have relationships between one or more tables. So, for example, in relational databases, you have the concepts of tables. So let's go back to that database I opened earlier. So here I have two tables. I have the post table and user table. This other one is created automatically by database for some management stuff. But these are the ones I created. I have post and user, and they're like this. They are the same. So these are two tables here, and you can relate the two to each other. So, for example, think of a blog application or a blog post. Go to, let's see, let's go to, oh no, not even a blog. Let's think of a social media platform like Twitter. Let's go to Twitter for a minute. And on Twitter, you will see, I look at this tweet, 7 more followers and I have 10K, make it happen. By who? According for whatever this is. Yeah. So this implies that this post wasn't created by somebody, yeah, and this is somebody's name. But how do we store this information in a database? And how do I relate it? How do I know that? Because look at it now, I have two tables. I have posts table, and you can imagine that in Twitter you have posts on a giant table, billions of posts on a giant table. But how do I know which post belongs to who? That's where relationships come in, because and that's why relational databases are called relational databases, because they allow for relationships between tables, and there are different kinds of relationships that they allow for. So For example, this one here, this one guy, if you go to his account, has more than one post. Yeah, one person is creating multiple posts or resources. That kind of relationship, for example, is called a one-to-many relationship, meaning that one entity is able to create multiple other entities that are stored in a separate table. So I have a users table here. This is John. This person is called John. This John has gone ahead and created a post in the post table. It's called my first post. John can go further to create a new post. And as you can, if you look at the first post, you see that there's this field called author ID. This author ID is what ties this post to the user or to the user that created the post. So from here, if I have a long list of, if I go back to users, if I have a long list, I'm looking for whoever posted that stuff. I can just go to posts, look for the author ID, it's one Abby, then go to user, and then look for whoever has the ID of one. Then I'll know that, oh, this is the guy that posted it. Yeah. And this is how Twitter does it, or this is how this application do it. In order for them to find, so when I click on, before I came to the person's profile page, when I clicked on his account, all of that data was loaded for me. So it just went to the database, did a quick search, or if there's a cache somewhere, it did a quick search, look for, oh yeah, find me all of the posts that has this person's ID. Do you get all the posts that has this person ID as the author of the tweets and load them up, then show them for me here. Do you get? So that's how relational databases work. They relate one table to another table. And I've shown you a practical example. Do you guys understand? Do you guys understand this? Do you understand the idea behind like relationship between two tables with this example that I've shown you? Someone's mic is on. Can you turn off your mic? Do you guys understand this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand you.
Okay. Yeah, so that's the idea behind relational databases. And that's like one example. That's just to help you to understand that relationships can exist with relational databases. Whereas with non-relational databases, relationships are not enforced. You can have data, you can just have a giant collection of documents, they call them documents. So call them documents in non-relational databases. You can just have that and you don't have to tie it to anybody. You are the one that will find how it is you want to identify what. But for the purpose of this bootcamp, we will be doing relational databases. Those are my personal favorites, and also because they're just more, I like it. I feel like they're more interesting to talk about. Sure. The other ones are no SQL databases are also not that difficult. They have a less steep learning curve. So after you finish from this bootcamp, if it's something that you may need later on, it's easy. It should be very easy for you to pick because it's not as complex as relational databases. So we're going to do the main stuff in this bootcamp. So that's like a quick intro to what databases are. And okay, so is Excel a database? Do you guys think Excel or Google Sheets is a database? What do you guys think?
Excel is a database.
I think
Oh, yes.
Excel is a database.
Excel is a
If you
database.
if you, if you think Excel is a database, just raise your hands. Mhm. Who else thinks it's a database? Some people so far. Okay. For those of you that are not reading, raising your hand since that means if you think that Excel is not a database, and I'm going to ask you why you think so, and why you think it's not a database. Someone just their hands. Okay, so for those that think that Excel is a database, just give me a reason why. Who wants to go first? Why do you think Excel is a database? I mean, it sure
Excel
looks
is
like a
a data,
database. Okay.
Excel is a database because it manages data in the sense that that that's just it. It takes in data, it keeps track of data, manages data.
Hmm.
It's all about data.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. Any other addition, or has this speak your mind? Did Samuel speak your mind, or was it Samuel that spoke? Any other additional comments for the team? So, is there anybody that thinks, for those that don't think that Excel is a database, someone from their group should just say why do they think Excel is not a database? Just unmute yourself. Yeah, I think Joel wants to say something. Are you saying something? I can't hear you. Okay, they don't want to talk. Okay, so let us consult the oracle. Is Excel a data? Oh, see that it's a common question, and as you can see, it hit us right in the face. Excel is not a database, so stop using it like one. Yes, this is true. And Excel is not a database. It's what you would call a spreadsheet package. Granted, it organizes data like as you would typically find in databases, like I've shown you. But you see, the thing is, Excel doesn't scale, and it wasn't even built to act like a database. Database is when data become really really large, like what, for example, Twitter. For example, you can imagine they have billions of tweets on there. How is it that when you load your Twitter, you get the results really really fast? This is because databases are built like servers. They're like computers that do various kinds of computations to quick for fast retrieval of data. Excel doesn't give you that functionality, and for the most part, it's difficult for you to even deploy like Excel as an instance for you to be serving data from all over the world. You know, databases are built for things like that, for proper development purposes. You can use Excel as a mini database for like tiny projects. When you're building serious projects, nobody's going to ask you to use Excel. A more suitable answer from like the Microsoft Office suite of what they call them of tools would be Access. Microsoft Access. It's not like it's a database. No, it's just like it qualifies to be called a database more than Excel. So what they call it? Access. What you call it? DBMS, a database management software. Yeah, yeah, the system combines relational access, blah blah blah. You can use this one, but it has its own limitations, and it wouldn't serve you as much as something like a proper database like MySQL or Oracle DB or Postgres DB. These are proper databases. So Excel is not a database. It's just used for presenting data in these formats of rows and columns. Do you guys understand?
Yes,
Okay, okay, okay. So how many more minutes do we have?
we have 22 minutes.
22.
Mm.
Okay, so we have more 22 more minutes, and will I be able to cover ORMs? Okay, maybe I'll just talk about ORMs. I'll just talk about
We are going to talk about forms.
what you say. Yeah, I'll talk about it, and then am I the one? I'm not the one that is taking next class. So this back. Okay, maybe we'll schedule like another class. Schedule another class. I'll say maybe for another class before the actual next class, yeah, because I won't be it's not me that's going to take the next class. It's this guy. I don't know his name. It's a blank god. So that guy. Then yeah, to the following, the one after before I come again. So we need to find some time to fix just a class so that we'll talk about ORMs and how to do modeling. Yeah.
Okay.
So yes. Are there any questions so far? Questions, additional
Uh,
comments?
what's the meaning of ORM?
ORM. Okay, ORM stands for Object Relational Mapper. Again, Object Relational Mapper. And mapper is like map. Mapper. And I'll explain what that is in the next class. I'm already tired like this. So I know we have 2 more minutes. So I'm just going to take questions. Uh, any other questions? Some people did not talk throughout.
How, are we going to be building and deploying a real life web application?
Yeah, absolutely. It's in the curriculum. Further down, cloud models, deploying. That's the last thing we're doing, child. That's the last thing we're doing. Then for like your final project, you guys are given like a task to build a server, deploy it, to build a server from scratch, give you specifications for the server, then you deploy it to something like Roku or whatever you decide. But when that time comes, we'll cross that bridge. But sure, we are doing deployment for sure. Anybody else? Any other questions? So, am I to assume that everybody's clear on it? I I recognize people that have not talked today. Ore, Joshua, Myla, Joel, Isaac did not talk. Deborah did not talk. Getting Adebo, Damilola did not talk. Is it Unana that just talks now? That asked me what ORM is?
No, I wasn't the one that talked just now.
Boss, why you hide your voice?
Oh,
Why
okay.
you no want talk? For?
I know I say that.
Joshua,
No
how far?
question. Yeah, I
You don't
did.
have you don't have any questions?
No, it's all fine. It's all clear.
Agua. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, since there are no other questions,
Will a physical meeting, like scheduled?
eh?
When will there be a physical meeting?
When would it be a physical meeting? I don't know. I don't know. I just is that
Like,
supposed to be? They say there will be a physical meeting.
I thought I heard something like that maybe on the 27th. I don't know. I read it from Slack. Maybe I'll go and review it.
On the 27th. 27th. What's the
I,
27th?
I think it's 20 some.
Maybe. I'm just a tutor. I don't know about
Okay.
the yeah. So if they say there is going to be a physical, then no problem. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yes. But if you have question about like logistics and all that kind of stuff, you reach out to Fortune on the group chat. I'll be on the Slack.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, the
Okay.
physical meeting was slated for Saturday next week.
Eh.
Yeah,
I have.
I just saw it on Slack.
Yes.
I didn't see that. What was the long messages?
On the announcements channel.
Okay. Oh, okay. Plans for physical gathering Saturday and I see. Oh yeah, now no problem. Next
Okay.
Saturday, yeah. But I don't think I'm done taking that one. Is this guy, Abby? Anyhow, Sha. You guys don't have who is late comer that is just coming now. Abigail, welcome. Are you just did you join at all since? Or you are just joining now? Because like I have finished today class. But it's recorded, Sha, so yeah, I mean you could always refer to the recording. No other questions here. Going, going, gone.
Hello, Paul.
Okay, Isaac, what's good?
Yeah, good evening, Paul.
Good evening.
Okay, so I was having a little glitch when we are talking about databases. Please, which SQL database would we be learning? Would we be using?
Mm, so the thing is, you need not bother about which SQL database you'll be using because most of them work the same way. The only difference say between Postgres and MySQL, for example, would be that Postgres has certain like some data types that MySQL doesn't support, but they all follow the same set of rules. They all do the same relational stuff, and they work the same way. They only scale vertically, they don't scale
That's literally
horizontally.
simple.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Sometimes.
Yes.
thank
So
you.
and you'll be writing when you want to query the database. It's the same SQLs that you will still write. The same SQL you write to query MySQL is the same SQL you write to query Postgres.
There's one. Ah, okay.
So,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
So, where we're currently at now, it won't be significant. The differences wouldn't be significant where we're currently at because we haven't gone that deep yet. And even when you go that deep, not unless you are requiring those very specific features that Postgres gives you, you may not notice the difference between a MySQL database or a Postgres database.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
but for purposes of the tutorial, we are going to be we start with Sqlite first because it comes pre-installed with Flask. It comes pre-installed with Python. So you can easily just create
Okay,
Sqlite databases. But I will also show you how to install MySQL databases and configure them and show you how to do it with Postgres too. So I just show you the popular ones and set it up. So if while I'm using SQLite to create databases and work with the applications, you can be using MySQL on your end. The code will be the exact same thing. They work the exact same way. So you'll be fine.
then you were talking about virtual environments, and you said, for example, now using different versions and having to install the particular maybe package that you need for
Yeah.
that virtual environment. Does that apply for the database also?
No. It doesn't only apply to like Python projects.
Okay, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. That'll be all.
Okay now, boss. Any other questions?
After you.
Any other questions? Okay, there's none. So see you guys next time. Guys, good night.
Okay, good night. Thank you.
Yes, boss.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Alba.
Thank you. Good night. Bye.
Yeah, good night. Fortune, I'm done now, so you can stop.